The rain had finally stopped, but the streets outside still glistened under the yellow glow of the streetlights. Inside the small diner, the air smelled of coffee and grease, the kind of scent that clung to Anna's apron no matter how many times she washed it. She moved quickly between booths, her sneakers squeaking on the tile, balancing plates and refilling cups with the quiet rhythm of someone who had been on her feet too long. It was just another shift, another night of trying to make rent and keep up with tuition. At least, that's what Anna thought, until the door opened. An elderly woman stepped in, her shoulders hunched under a worn sweater, clutching a faded cloth bag to her chest. She paused by the doorway, blinking at the bright lights, as if gathering courage before shuffling to a table near the window. When the server at the counter asked for her order, she tried to respond. The words came out in broken English, halting and heavy with accent. The young man leaned closer, frowning. "Sorry, what was that?" he asked, louder this time. She repeated herself, slower, her voice trembling. The meaning still didn't land. A couple of customers in line exchanged glances. One of them smirked, shaking his head. From a nearby booth, someone let out a short laugh, sharp enough for the woman to hear. Anna froze where she stood, a coffee pot still in her hand. She saw the way the woman's fingers tightened on the strap of her bag, the way her eyes darted down to the floor, her shoulders curling inward. Embarrassment had a look, and Anna recognized it instantly. It wasn't just about not knowing English. It was the weight of being on the outside, of realizing everyone around you thought you didn't belong. And as Anna watched, heart tightening, she felt that old ache, the memory of her grandmother sitting at a kitchen table, tripping over English words while neighbours grew impatient. She remembered translating for her as a child, the sting of seeing someone you love treated as though their voice didn't matter. The woman at the window sank deeper into her chair, gripping her bag as though wishing she could disappear. And Anna knew right then that if she stayed where she was, if she chose to keep her head down and pretend it wasn't her problem, she would regret it for the rest of the night. The diner felt heavier than usual, like the hum of voices and clinking dishes had turned into background noise no one wanted to break. The older woman sat stiffly at her table, her hands trembling over the menu she couldn't read. She tried again, whispering a few English words, but they tumbled out broken and fragile. The young man behind the counter shifted impatiently. "I still don't understand," he muttered. He looked over his shoulder, hoping someone else might jump in, but no one did. A couple at the door sighed loudly, one glancing at their watch. From the booth near the jukebox, another customer chuckled, shaking his head as though the whole thing were a spectacle. Anna stood a few feet away, her coffee pot warming her hand. She wasn't part of this table. Her manager had made that clear earlier in the night. New staff like her weren't supposed to interfere with problem customers. Her manager's eyes flicked toward her now, sharp and warning, as if daring her to step out of line. Her stomach knotted. She could feel her palms grow damp against the handle of the pot. She knew what staying silent would mean. She'd get through her shift, clock out, go home, and try to forget. But she also knew she wouldn't. The woman's chair scraped softly against the floor as she pushed back, ready to leave. She clutched her bag like a lifeline, her lips pressed tight, her face flushed with humiliation. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She remembered her grandmother again, the way her voice used to crack under the weight of a language she couldn't master, the way people pretended not to see her. Anna's hands trembled, but her feet moved before her doubts could stop them. She set the coffee pot down on a counter, wiped her palms on her apron, and walked toward the table by the window. The room seemed to quiet as she leaned in, lowering her voice so only the woman could hear. "Necesita ayuda, señora?" The woman froze. Her head lifted, eyes wide, as though she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. Anna's heart raced, but she repeated the words, softer this time. Relief flooded the woman's face like sunlight breaking through clouds. Her lips trembled, and tears gathered in her eyes. She whispered back in Spanish, her words spilling out in a rush. Words Anna hadn't realized she had missed hearing since her grandmother passed. The whole diner had gone silent now, curious eyes following the scene. The smirks faded. The laughter died, and for the first time that night the woman wasn't invisible. Anna exhaled, her own nerves steadying as she smiled gently. "It's okay," she said in Spanish. "You're not alone here." The bowl of soup arrived steaming, set gently on the table by Anna herself. She slid it in front of the woman and added a napkin, her voice low and warm as she translated to the cook behind her. The woman, Rosa, as she soon introduced herself, bowed her head slightly, whispering a blessing before lifting the spoon. Anna lingered nearby, not hovering but close enough in case Rosa needed her. She knew she should be refilling coffees or clearing plates, but something rooted her to that table. Her manager's glare brushed past her more than once, but Anna ignored it. The diner could wait. As Rosa ate slowly, savouring each bite, she began to speak in soft Spanish. At first it was simple, her name, a thank you, a note about how hard it was to order food anywhere without someone growing impatient. But then, little by little, more spilled out. My husband... Rosa paused, setting her spoon down. He passed away 10 years ago. He was the one who spoke better English. Without him, I lost my voice here. Her eyes shone in this dim light, not just with age, but with something heavier. My children live far. They call less now. Everyone is busy. Some days I don't hear another voice until evening. That's why I come here, not just for food, for people, for the sound of being alive. Anna's chest tightened. The words sank deep, stirring memories she'd tried to bury. Her own grandmother at family dinners, sitting silent because the effort of speaking English was too much. She remembered the way she used to sit beside her, whispering translations, feeling the weight of being the only bridge between her and the world. Anna lowered herself into the chair across from Rosa. Her hands fidgeted in her lap, aware of the looks from the counter, but she stayed anyway. "You're not invisible," Anna said softly, switching back to Spanish. "Not tonight, not while I'm here." Rosa's lips curved into a small smile, weary but real. She reached across the table, her frail fingers brushing against Anna's hand. The contact was light, almost hesitant, but the meaning was undeniable: gratitude, relief, and the simple joy of being seen. Around them the diner carried on, though quieter now. The chuckles had vanished, the whispers stilled. It was as if the whole room had recognised, in that fragile moment, that dignity mattered more than speed or convenience. For Anna, it felt like something had shifted, not just for Rosa but for herself too. She wasn't just a waitress serving soup. She was someone who could make a difference, even in the smallest corner of the night. For a few minutes, everything felt calm. Rosa ate her soup slowly, her shoulders no longer curled inward, her face a little lighter than before. Anna stayed close, translating when needed, sharing a few gentle words. It was a fragile peace, but peace all the same. Then the door swung open, letting in a burst of cold air, and 3 men in dusty work jackets. They spoke loudly as they claimed a booth near the counter, their laughter echoing across the diner. One of them leaned back in his seat, eyes catching Rosa at the window. "She's still here," he said, his voice carrying. "What's taking so long? She can't even order a meal." The others snickered. The sound cut through the diner like a knife. Rosa froze, her spoon hovering halfway to her mouth. She lowered it slowly, her hand trembling. The colour drained from her cheeks as if she were bracing for another blow she couldn't stop. Anna's pulse quickened. She saw the way the room shifted. Some customers stared into their menus, pretending not to hear. A woman at the counter whispered to her husband, and behind it all, her manager stood stiff, his jaw tight but his eyes fixed on Anna, silently warning her not to get involved. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. A voice in her head whispered, "Stay out of it. Don't risk your job." Her palms grew damp against her apron. She thought about rent, about tuition, about how badly she needed this paycheck. But then she looked at Rosa, at the way she shrank in her chair, clutching her bag again like armour. And Anna remembered her grandmother, the shame that used to silence her when strangers dismissed her like she wasn't worth listening to. That memory burned hotter than fear. Before she could lose her nerve, Anna stepped forward. Her hands shook, but her voice came out steady. "She already ordered," she said firmly, her gaze fixed on the man. "And she's fine." The diner went quiet. The laughter at the booth faltered, one of the men shifting uncomfortably. The loudest of them smirked, muttered something under his breath, but turned back to his menu. The others followed his lead, suddenly more interested in their plates than in Rosa. Anna's knees felt weak, but she didn't let it show. She turned back to Rosa, offering the smallest smile. "You belong here as much as anyone," she whispered in Spanish. Rosa's eyes shimmered. She reached for Anna's hand across the table, her fingers fragile but full of strength. For the first time in years, she wasn't just a woman struggling to be understood. She was someone defended, someone worth standing up for. And everyone in the diner had seen it. The clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation slowly returned after the confrontation, but something in the diner had shifted. The mocking laughter was gone. Even the air felt different, quieter, heavier, as if everyone was aware of the small act of courage that had just unfolded. Anna lowered herself into the seat across from Rosa, ignoring the sharp look her manager shot her way. She'd pay for it later, maybe with a lecture or a cut in hours. But right now, none of that mattered. Rosa dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, her hand trembling. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered in Spanish, her voice fragile but steady enough to carry her gratitude. Anna shook her head. "Yes, I did. No one deserves to be spoken to like that." Rosa's lips curved into the smallest smile, a flicker of light in a face lined by years of struggle. She picked up her spoon again, but instead of eating, she set it back down and folded her hands. It seemed as though words had been locked away inside her for years, and Anna's kindness had given her permission to finally open them. "I was 19 when I came here," Rosa began softly. "My husband worked long hours in construction. He spoke better English than me. He told me, 'Don't worry, I'll be your voice.' And he was, until he died." Her gaze dropped to the table, her fingers tightening on the napkin. "After that, the world became quieter. Not just because he was gone, but because I could no longer speak for myself." Anna leaned in, her chest heavy. She had expected a thank you, maybe a smile, but not this. This raw honesty from a stranger who had just trusted her with a piece of her heart. "My children live far," Rosa continued. "They call sometimes, they send money when they can, but they have their own lives. And me," she gave a short, broken laugh. "I have my little apartment, my plants, and silence. Too much silence." Anna swallowed hard. She thought about her own apartment, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the exhaustion of studying after late shifts. She thought about how alone she often felt in a city so crowded, it should have been impossible to feel invisible. "You're not alone tonight," Anna said firmly, "not while I'm here." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rosa simply looked at her, tears glistening but held back, and Anna realised how rare it was to truly see someone, beyond their struggles, beyond their mistakes, beyond their accent. And in that fragile silence, Anna felt something shift inside her too. This wasn't just about helping Rosa order food. It was about dignity, about being willing to stop, to sit, and to remind someone they still mattered. The soup bowl was nearly empty, but Rosa lingered at the table, her fingers tracing the rim as if reluctant to let the moment end. Anna stayed seated across from her, her apron smudged from the long shift, her notepad forgotten on the counter. For once, she wasn't rushing to wipe down a table or refill a cup. She was exactly where she needed to be. From across the room, her manager cleared his throat loudly. Anna looked up to see him standing with his arms folded, his eyes locked on her with a pointed glare. He tapped his watch and mouthed, "Get moving." Anna's stomach tightened. She knew she should get up, return to her rounds, and avoid the trouble that was sure to come later. But then she looked back at Rosa, her fragile frame, her tired eyes, the way she seemed to draw strength from just being understood. Anna inhaled slowly, then turned her chair back toward Rosa. For tonight she chose to stay. Rosa gave a faint smile, as though she understood the risk. She wrapped both hands around the coffee cup Anna had placed in front of her earlier. "It's quiet at home," she murmured, her voice low. "Too quiet. Some days I don't speak a word to anyone until I come here. The television talks, but it doesn't listen back." Anna felt the words land heavily. She thought about her own apartment, the thin walls, the piles of textbooks stacked on the floor. She lived with roommates, but they mostly passed each other like shadows, too busy, too tired to talk. Different lives, yet the same kind of emptiness. "My husband made me brave," Rosa went on, her eyes glistening. "He always said, 'Don't be afraid, Rosa. This country is big enough for all of us.' When he died, I lost more than him. I lost that courage." Anna swallowed hard, her throat tight. She thought of her grandmother, who had faced the same silence in a language that never welcomed her. She thought of her own exhaustion, balancing work and classes, wondering if she was strong enough to keep going. "I get that," Anna admitted softly. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just surviving. School, work, bills. It feels like no matter how hard I try, I'm always behind." She gave a small, rueful laugh. "I study languages because I want to be a translator someday. I want to travel, but right now, I can barely afford groceries." Rosa's gaze softened and she reached across the table to cover Anna's hand with her own. Her touch was warm, steady, filled with something deeper than sympathy. "You are stronger than you think," she whispered. "Tonight you gave me back my voice. That means you carry more than you know." Anna blinked quickly, fighting the sting in her eyes. She realised this wasn't just Rosa's story anymore, it was theirs. Two women, two generations, bound by the same thread of loneliness and the same fragile hope of belonging. And for the first time in a long while, Anna didn't feel invisible either. The diner buzzed around them, plates clattering, conversations weaving in and out. But at their little table by the window, the world seemed to slow down. Rosa's hand still rested on Anna's, light but steady, as though she wanted to anchor her to something deeper than just the moment. Anna exhaled. She hadn't meant to open up so much, but the words had spilled out anyway, about her exhaustion, her grades slipping, the mountain of bills that kept her awake at night. It felt risky to admit weakness, especially to someone she had only just met. Yet with Rosa, it didn't feel like judgment was waiting on the other side. It felt like listening. "I'm studying languages," Anna said quietly, almost embarrassed. "Spanish, French, even some Portuguese. I want to be a translator one day. Maybe work at conferences or travel or help people the way I helped you tonight. But dreams like that, they're expensive. Some days I wonder if I'm chasing something I can never reach." Rosa tilted her head, her eyes kind but sharp with the weight of experience. "When I was your age, I wanted to be a teacher," she said. "But my family needed money, so I worked instead. Years passed, and the dream grew smaller, like a light fading in the distance. I thought it was gone forever." She paused, her voice catching. "But tonight, hearing you speak, I realised maybe my dream didn't die. Maybe it was just waiting for someone else to carry it." Anna blinked, caught by the honesty in her words. She thought about the nights she studied until her eyes blurred, the times she nearly quit, the mornings when exhaustion made her want to walk away. Could it be that her efforts weren't just for herself, but for all the voices before her who never had the chance? Rosa tightened her grip gently. "You have to keep going, Miha, even when you are tired, especially then. If you stop, the world will not push you forward. You must be your own reason." The words sank deep. Anna felt a lump rise in her throat, unexpected and heavy. She realised she wasn't just listening to an old woman trying to ease her loneliness. She was listening to a teacher, to wisdom carved from a lifetime of silence and endurance. Anna nodded, blinking back the tears that threatened to spill. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know how much I needed to hear that." For the first time all evening, Rosa's smile reached her eyes. It wasn't wide, but it was steady, a spark of pride shining through her frailty. And Anna, sitting in her grease-stained apron, realised she wasn't just a tired waitress anymore. She was a bridge between languages, between generations, between dreams that had once been silenced and dreams still trying to be born. The coffee in Rosa's cup had cooled, but neither of them seemed eager to end the evening. Rosa sat a little taller now, her face softer, though the weight of her years still pressed at the corners of her eyes. Anna glanced toward the counter and saw the check already waiting, tucked beneath a salt shaker by a passing busboy. Rosa noticed it too. She reached for her worn purse, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the zipper. "I pay for myself," she said firmly in Spanish, her pride clear. "Always." Anna hesitated. She understood that dignity mattered. To argue would only embarrass her. So instead, Anna rose casually, picking up the check as if it were part of her job. She walked to the counter, slipped her own cash from her apron pocket, and paid quickly before anyone could question it. On her way back, she stopped in the kitchen window and spoke softly to the cook. A few minutes later, she returned with a small cardboard box tied with string. She set it on the table beside Rosa's cloth bag. "What is this?" Rosa asked, puzzled. "Something for later," Anna replied with a smile. "Just in case you get hungry tonight." Rosa lifted the lid. Inside was a slice of pie, a roll of bread, and a small container of soup. Nothing fancy, nothing costly, but enough to remind someone they were cared for. For a long moment, Rosa just stared at it. Her lips parted, but no words came. Then she looked up, her eyes shimmering. "Why are you so kind to me?" she whispered. Anna's throat tightened. She reached for her ragged apron, twisting it in her hands before answering. "Because if it were my grandmother sitting here," she said softly, "I'd want someone to do the same." Rosa's face broke into a trembling smile. She reached across the table and pressed Anna's hand between both of hers. "You remind me," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "that the world still has good hearts." Anna squeezed her hand gently, feeling a warmth she hadn't known she'd been missing. She couldn't change Rosa's life entirely, couldn't erase the loneliness waiting at her apartment. But maybe she could make tonight a little less heavy, and sometimes one night was enough. A week passed before Anna saw Rosa again. It was a slow Tuesday evening, the kind where the diner lights felt too bright for how empty the room was. Anna was wiping down a booth when the bell over the door jingled. She looked up and saw her. Rosa stood in the doorway, clutching a small paper bag folded neatly at the top. For a moment she didn't move. Her eyes scanned the room, and Anna could see the flicker of doubt on her face, as if she wasn't sure she belonged here again, or if she should turn around and disappear back into the night. Anna caught her gaze and smiled, lifting a hand in a little wave. The hesitation broke. Rosa stepped inside slowly, her cloth bag swinging lightly at her side, the paper bag pressed close to her chest. When she reached Anna's section, she set the bag carefully on the table. "For you?" she said in Spanish, her voice low but steady. Anna blinked. "For me?" Rosa nodded and nudged it closer. Inside was a stack of homemade tortillas, still warm, wrapped in a clean kitchen towel. The smell rose up instantly, corn and butter, comforting and familiar. For a second, Anna couldn't speak. It was the same scent that used to drift from her grandmother's kitchen, the kind that clung to memories you never forget. "I don't have much," Rosa said, her eyes glistening, "but I wanted you to know I didn't forget what you did for me. You gave me kindness when I felt small, so I wanted to give you something from my hands, from my heart." Anna pressed the towel to her chest, blinking back tears. "You didn't have to." "Yes," Rosa interrupted gently, "I did. Because that night, when you spoke to me, I saw my daughter in your face. We haven't spoken in so long, but you reminded me of her. You reminded me of family." The words cut through Anna, soft and heavy all at once. She saw the longing in Rosa's eyes, the ache of distance, the love with nowhere to go. And in that moment, Anna understood. The tortillas weren't just food, they were connection. Around them, the diner carried on, but Anna barely noticed. All she saw was Rosa's trembling smile. All she felt was the warmth of a gift that weighed more than money ever could. She placed a hand over Rosa's. "Then I'll eat these like I'm at home," she whispered. "And I'll think of you." Rosa's smile deepened, fragile but radiant, as though she'd finally given away something she'd been carrying too long. The tortillas didn't last long. By the end of her shift, Anna had shared one with the cook in the back and tucked the rest carefully into her bag for later. But it wasn't really the food that mattered, it was the gift itself. The warmth still clinging to the towel, the way Rosa's trembling hands had passed it across the table, the look in her eyes when she said Anna reminded her of family. Rosa came back to the diner now and then, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes for a simple bowl of soup. Each time Anna would find a way to stop for a few minutes, to sit and talk. They didn't need big conversations, just a few words, a smile, the sound of two voices crossing the silence. On nights when Anna trudged home exhausted, bills tucked into her apron pocket and textbooks waiting on her desk, she would unwrap one of the tortillas and take a bite, and with every bite she felt less alone. It struck her how close she had come to missing it all. If she had looked away that first night, if she had told herself it wasn't her problem, Rosa would have left the diner carrying only her loneliness, and Anna would have gone on, another tired waitress moving through another shift, never knowing that kindness can echo louder than exhaustion. Some people would remember the food, the noise of plates, the smell of coffee that clung to the air. But Anna knew she would remember something else. The moment a stranger became more than a customer, the moment silence gave way to connection. And years later, when she thought back on the long nights that blurred together, one memory would shine brighter than the rest. A paper bag filled with warm tortillas, handed across a table, carrying proof that kindness is never wasted. Lesson: this story reminds us that kindness doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down, listening, or offering a warm meal. Dignity and compassion can turn an ordinary night into a memory that lasts a lifetime. Question: have you ever experienced a moment when a small act of kindness changed the way you saw the world, or the way someone saw you? We'd love to hear your story in the comments. Thank you for watching and sharing this moment with us. Until next time, take care of yourself and others. We'll see you again tomorrow night here on Rain Inside.